Hi, I'm Dr. Padilla. We have been talking about transforms in Vega-Lite, and we have made it to the last transform we're going to cover, which is calculate. Now, in the previous video, I walked you through generating this visualization here, which involves joining two datasets. Now, this was not that satisfying, as basically what it created was a little tooltip where you can scroll over these dots and it reveals the value from the second dataset that has been added, which is fine. What you will probably want to do is encode the second value with maybe something that's more visually distinct that can help people see the differences, see the trends, or you can do something like calculate and create a new value that is representative of these two data sets being combined together. So I'm going to show you how to add a calculate to this visualization here. Now, calculate is honestly pretty straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and add it at this point. I'm specifying it after we have combined the data set here, and then we've grouped and made some summary information, summary statistics here, both for economic damages. We have a summary value for that, and deaths, we have a summary value for that. Now I'm going to do a calculation once I have those calculated. I'm going to do a computation on both of those two together. The way we'll do that is we'll add Vega-Lite calculate, and here is where we would specify what we actually want the calculation to be, and then we will save it as something. So I'm going to call the datum total damages that I have here. And you can really do any type of calculation, but I'm first going to just multiply that by the datum for total deaths that we created. And then what we'll need to do is then save this so we can call it later to visualize. I'm just going to save this as a product as we've simply multiplied these together. That's simple. We shouldn't see anything major going on, in part because we have not encoded this new field of product that I've created. So I'm going to change out total deaths and I'm going to replace it with product. Go back here. Now you can see that we have the product of those two values that we had before. Still have that tooltip, and it's really just reading out the product. And this is essentially a combination of the two charts that we had made earlier. Notice the higher values for deaths in the early years and then higher damages in the later years. What we've simply done here is multiply them together. Now that can be a very useful technique just in theory, in that you can really do any type of calculation here and then call it later. This particular one isn't that good in the sense that if I go back up to the top, what I'm looking at here is the total damages in comparison to the deaths are huge. These total damages, I think, are in dollars. I'm not exactly sure actually, but they're very large values, and the deaths proportionally are much smaller. So when you're multiplying these together just straight like this, it's going to prioritize these larger numbers in terms of damages. So that's actually what we see down here is most of the action is happening in terms of these later years because the damages that are much larger have a higher weighting. We can actually change the calculation to make it a little bit more even. And one way to do that is to simply take the square root of these. So we'll do the square root of all of this. And it's no longer the product, and I'm actually going to call this a severity index. Now what we have visualized here is an index that more appropriately weights the two factors together. And there's a lot of science and theories about how to create a severity index, and I'm not saying that this is the best way to do it. I'm saying in theory, this is how you would go about doing a calculation that might produce something like a severity index where you're weighting or integrating two different values. And I think it is important to point out these techniques that you can use within Transform to change the visualization of your data rather than just thinking about what color or mark or line am I going to use. It's really important to think about how you are processing and aggregating, filtering, calculating your underlying data, because that can have a really big impact on the subsequent visualization as we've seen in this example. And that's it for a deep dive into transforms. I hope you found it informative, and this was really just a brief overview. There's lots more you can do with transforms. Just remember that when visualizing your data, your visualization is only as good as your underlying data processing. So don't skimp on the transform steps.